Welcome to the very first episode of Space Makers, a show about the people and stories behind the spaces we love. Today, I'm joined by Chef Bill Taibe, the mind behind Kawa Ni, Denver. Today, we're going to explore what makes this corner of Lohi so special and how Bill, his team, and you give this restaurant its soul. Bill, welcome to Space Makers Podcast. How are we doing?
Fantastic, gentlemen. Good morning.
Good
Doing great today.
morning.
Yeah, I'm in rainy Connecticut right now.
We're in sunny Colorado today. It is quite blistering in this office, sweating in the sweater.
It sounds about Colorado. Yeah, you're in Denver. We've had some really great weather here in Connecticut, and we just got a rainstorm today, so it's needed. I haven't seen fire issue here in a very, very, very long time, and I think we were reaching it before this rain. So,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, much needed.
Keep the flames in the kitchen.
Yes.
There we go. It's a T-shirt.
Yeah, that is a good one. So I wanted to start off with a little icebreaker question. If there's a dish at Kawani that you think sums up the Kawani experience, what do you think it would be?
Maybe the obvious answer would be the broccoli salad. And we were just talking about that and joking.
Yeah.
I actually just got asked this question recently here in Connecticut. Connecticut, our Kawani in Connecticut's about 11 years old. We were doing, the local food issue was coming out, and they were doing a little claim to fame to Kawani, and they said, what dish probably sums up what you think of Kawani? And, my answer, and I forgot that I answered this, and I went back and read the article recently, and I said the tofu pocket, which is kind of funny. And the reason I say that is there's a little bit of a story to the tofu pocket. Kawani is 11 years old. It was one of the first dishes we put on the menu. And really, Kawani, the intention of Kawani for me was to create, I was sort of the all-American farm-to-fork chef, if you would, right? And I had an opportunity to open this small little restaurant around the corner from one of my existing restaurants, The Well, because Chinese takeout space became available. And that's what really drove me towards the Kawani concept. I wanted to do something Asian, and really more so because I wanted to open up my inventory of ingredients. I just thought, who doesn't love all types of Asian food, all cultures of Asian food, but especially as a chef. And, the food was so foreign and so interesting to me, and I didn't know anything about it, and I really wanted to learn. So, what do you do when you want to learn something? You just open a restaurant. So I opened
You learn a lot.
The whole story of how I got to Japan and so on and so forth is maybe for another time. But the point of the tofu pocket was, inari, or tofu pockets, which is essentially a marinated tofu skin, is very much just like a snack. It's like a school kid snack. They serve it in their lunchbox or their bento box, and it would just be kind of like leftover rice, seasoned, and they'd maybe put some ham in it, or just leave it rice and roll it into a little sort of inari blunt. And the kids would snack on it. It was sweet and, savory and used old product. Well, we put crab in it. And there was a woman early on when we opened the restaurant that came in, and she was Japanese. And of course, I'm sweating and I'm nervous because, I want her to love the restaurant. I know this woman from no one, but I want her to love the restaurant. And, I'm humbled. And she comes in and she ordered the tofu pockets, a few other things. And she called over to the server and said, "Hey, come over," and said something, "Can I please talk to the chef, or can I talk to the owner?" In a very nice way. And I came over, and of course I'm shaking, and she's like, "What possessed you to put crab in such peasant food? This is not what we do." And I was like, "Oh shit, like we're open for 2 weeks at this point." And I'm being crucified. And I was like, I really love the flavors, and I wanted something interesting, and I wanted an elevated version of it. I'm like, "Did you," she's like, "Well, this is not what you're supposed to do with Inari." And I said, "Okay, did you enjoy it?" She's like, "Yes, very much, but that's the problem." And right there, I knew that maybe this was going to work.
Yeah,
and
you're
I
onto
could take these
something.
amazing ingredients and not necessarily follow the rules, per se, or because I wasn't brought up in the food. Fortunately, unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, from a creative standpoint. And that dish, I think, has stood the test of time. And it just for anybody that hasn't had it, it is a nari. or tofu skin that's been marinated in a sweet soy, and we make sushi rice, and then we season it. We just add a little bit of togarashi to it, some roasted garlic oil, yuzu juice, um, and then we make a crab mix of crab meat, lump crab meat, and kani, which is essentially imitation crab meat, if you would. But I love it. It's like my favorite ingredient.
Yeah.
And the same thing. This is keeping very early on in the Kawa Ni days too, where I didn't know how to use a lot of ingredients. So the rice is seasoned with togarashi, a little bit of ayo or blue seaweed, garlic oil, yuzu. The crab is seasoned with togarashi and yuzu juice and garlic oil.
There you go.
And we made like a yuzu tartar sauce. So instead of a lemon tartar sauce. So 11 years ago, I'm like grasping at straws, trying to come up with something creative, but only really understand like 3 or 4 different ingredients. And and then we just put some pumpernickel breadcrumbs on top, probably because, we had some bread laying around from one of the other restaurants. We were like, it needs something crunchy. How cool. We'll put this on. It's bitter and burnt. And that's the tofu pocket. And I just think it just tells the story of Kawani. For me, my journey through Kawani, which is having no idea how to cook this food, but putting something together tasty because the ingredients are so great and the flavors are so impactful and powerful to people, especially to our palates, the American palate. And then here we are 11 years later, and the dish still stands the test of time. I just served it at the Telluride Food and Wine Festival. And people were going crazy, like, what is this magical thing? So I'd say the tofu pocket.
That's a great answer. I also just get intrigued when you talk about, the guest saying you kind of elevated these peasant ingredients. You're not supposed to do that. When I think of that, I always think of like elevated pub fare. And I know you kind of brand Kawani as a Japanese pub. And you really get it when you think about it in that way. You're really taking something that's traditional and maybe simple and really elevating it and making it comforting and wanting to come back. And every time I go to your restaurant, even I didn't think broccoli would bring me back, but both the tofu pocket and the broccoli are things that I never thought I would enjoy so much. And I get those and I come back. And so kudos to you and your team.
Thank you.
Sounds like trial and error, but also just passion for food, which is so cool to see and hear.
I unfortunately have not tried the tofu pocket yet, so I guess that's my next dish when I get back.
I think they're like $5 at happy hour too, so jump over.
Oh, perfect. I live right there. Yeah.
So it's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth a pop in early.
Yeah. All right. So I'm curious a bit about the origin story to you and then to Denver. So we started in Connecticut, and how did that all start? And then how did you make your way here to the Mile High City?
Man, so I'm born and raised in New York, just outside of the kind of Queens, the metropolitan area, and then my parents moved us up to an area called Paterson, New York, or Putnam counties, about an hour outside of New York City, back in the '80s, and went to Carmel High School and sort of lived a normal life. My poor parents probably getting tired of hearing the story, but I was just a bad high school student, and I just wasn't good scholastically. You can even hear how I said that sentence, but I really struggled focusing, sitting still in class, comprehending information just being like spoken to me. So, I struggled. It wasn't easy. It was a challenge. Kind of as soon as I was a like well-to-do middle school kid, did everything you were supposed to, played sports, got good grades. I got into high school, and the challenges were really difficult for me. So I didn't really have a clear path other than like survival at that time. Like, what am I going to do? Making my parents as crazy as possible, and really not thinking about anybody except for myself. And I just got really lucky. Sort of in high school, my senior year, and then shortly after, I was introduced to a friend of mine. Just for some extra cash, a friend of mine had got me a position at his uncle's catering company in the area, and I was like, sure, this is great. Let's just go do this. I'd worked at a butcher shop in my small town from the time I was like 15. So I was very comfortable with working with food, but never in a million years thought that food would be my life. I thought I was going to be a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're talking, I graduated high school in 94. So at that time in Putnam County, New York, nobody was talking about going into the restaurant world. Our elevated cuisine, we would get a good report card. We'd go to Red Lobster. It was like there wasn't food. There was slice shops and pretty basic stuff. and I just was fortunate to get this position and sort of fell into food. And then once I got into food, in particular, Brow Bag of Armonk, which was the catering company, um, I just started to excel. I started to feel like, oh my God, life isn't that difficult. Like, I'm not getting kicked out of class. I actually want to go to work. Like, I never went to school. I would sign in at school. The principal would call my mother, be like, Pat, he showed up. He signed in at homeroom, but we haven't seen him since. Like when I got to work, I wanted to be there, and I just always wanted to be there. And it just felt really, really comfortable for me and welcoming and something I needed at that time in my life. So that was sort of just my entry in. And, the long and the short of it was, once I got into food, I excelled. It made sense. I think it was so much pent up energy, frustration, failure prior, through those high school years, which were tormenting, that I was so focused on being good at this, relieving myself of the stress, relieving my parents of the stress, the family, friends, just I'm okay now. And I got in the food and I gave it everything I had. And it paid off, from a young age.
Awesome.
I won't bore you with the whole resume, but I've been running kitchens and leading kitchens since I was about 23 years old, managing people, managing 30-year-old cooks, which I do not recommend. And I'm not telling you I should have been the chef either, but and a lot of it was maybe big fish, small pond, just not a lot of opportunity for others to take my seat. But I just worked hard, and I really impressed the folks that hired me. And it meant a lot to me to have that job, and I just wanted to be great at it. So my life started early in the career, and it started early, with pressure and with responsibility. And there was probably a 7-year period in those early times of my 20s where I would take a position because I wanted to cook and I wanted to go work for a particular chef. And this happened on 2 occasions where I specifically went to a restaurant to work there because I wanted to learn and sort of work through the ranks. And then, within 4 or 5 months of my tenure there, I was named the chef, like replacing the chef. And again,
That's awesome.
it has a lot to do with my gray hair, and
that's the restaurant business.
That's the restaurant business, and I know nothing else. And so I really have had some success here in Connecticut, creating sort of my own systems, my own foundation. But I really taught myself everything I know. There wasn't a lot of mentorship. My mentors were fellow cooks, folks that were almost working with me, kind of dealing with some of my craziness and chaos, and just learning from each other, figuring it out, and like I said, I think it's very much like the Kawa Ni concept. I've sort of gotten to the food business with no rules, nobody telling me how to do something, no real cultural background to it, and not a lot of guidance, just fucking figure it out. And that's what I did. And I think it's really sort of, it's been the main part of the script for me and my restaurants and how they operate, the kind of food we serve, and then generally just sort of a no rules approach to, it's just cooking. All I want to do is cook really good food. So a long career here in Connecticut. I'll be 50 in February. My first restaurant I owned was a restaurant. I was 27 years old. I was given a great opportunity. Previously, I'd opened a few restaurants for folks throughout Connecticut, new spaces that were opening. I had become pretty early on in my career, become somebody that had built up a reputation, and some people in the area that were opening up restaurants were kind of contacting me. So I had done that a few times, got some really good experience in opening restaurants on other people's dimes, which are great. And if you have that opportunity, it's amazing. And whether or not it's on someone else's dime or not, but just the excitement of opening a restaurant and being able to do that at like 25, 26 years old.
It's intoxicating.
Really amazing. It's intoxicating. But shortly and slowly, in a short amount of time, I think it was 27 or 28 years old when I opened Relish. I was ready, I thought. And I was given an opportunity. A guy locally had a sort of premium location in a great neighborhood in South Norwalk, Connecticut. And it's kind of where you wanted to be. It was the Strip. It was the, sort of the retail center of the area. And he said, hey, if you could scratch together a couple pennies, turn this place into whatever you want, we'll be 50-50 partners. I have the lease, I have the equipment. It was pretty much like lipstick on a pig. And, you raise the money to do it. We did that. Me and my wife, asked everybody we knew. We raised a couple bucks. We had friends come in and help us kind of paint it, design it, whatever. And we opened Relish Food and Wine. Relish was amazing. I was 27 years old, 27, 28 years old, had just an army of amazing young cooks that were as crazy as I was, who now all have their own separate careers and lives and restaurants, and still really close to that original team. One of them being my brother, who's a tremendous chef in his own right.
It's awesome.
But unfortunately, what happened was I started to learn the business end. I was super focused on cooking. All I did was cook. I didn't care. We'd get to work at 9:30, 10 a.m. for, dinner service was at 5 o'clock. We'd work all day just to be ready, and just created a tremendous environment to work in. But what was happening in the behind the scenes was that partner of mine, little did I know in my inexperiences, he had some serious financial problems, tax liabilities from prior situations, and why he was willing to so he was looking for someone to kind of pull him out of it. I was naive and dumb and didn't know. So, we opened Relish. I was the youngest chef in the state of Connecticut to get an Excellent in the New York Times, which is like the highest rating you could get. We were killing it. It was just a blast. And I got a phone call one day. I was living up in Fairfield with my wife, and I believe we just had I guess both sons were born. Sorry, Oliver. Yeah, you were both born. And, and, I got a phone call from a friend of mine in the neighborhood. It's early in the morning, 7:30 in the morning. I had a kitchen shop, and he was like, Bill, something's going on. What's up at Relish? But there's trucks behind Relish, and people are like moving stuff in and out, like moving companies. And I'm 25 minutes away, brush my teeth, get down there. And by the time I got there, they were gone, and everything else in the restaurant was gone.
No.
Yeah. So it as you can imagine, that was one of those like, oh shit moments. Like, what just happened? My whole entire life, my family's life, just got turned upside down. And that was not part of culinary school. That was not part of that was not part of brown bag. When I was peeling, they were teaching me, how to prep vegetables. They weren't talking about that as a possibility. So that was a real eye-opening experience. That happened. But it took a while for my family, my wife. Thank God we were afforded help and support from our families to get through this financially. All different ways, right? You can imagine the lawyer fees and this type of stuff. So what it did, but what it did do, aside from tear us apart for 2 years, was really, it was an eye-opening experience. It's one of those situations where you realize, like, business is business, and this is real life stuff. You're not a kid anymore. You can't just like do what you want to do. You have to protect yourself. You have to be smart about it. You got to make sure you know who you're doing business with, and so on and so forth down the line. So I kind of stepped out of the game for a little bit. I helped some folks in the area. I was really beaten down. I didn't think I wanted to step in a kitchen again. That's how destroyed I was by it. And I started helping some friends in the area with some other concepts. Created a burger concept, burgers and red wine, called Burger Bar. Like, this is again 20 years ago, 15 years ago. And I thought that I was like, I'm going to be fine. We're going to do just an amazing burger menu, focus on like great wine list and burgers. That's it. Kill it. And there was a woman in the area throughout that was very well known for having some successful restaurants, was opening a new restaurant. And she was fishing around and really trying to get my attention. And I kept declining. And then finally, I took her invitation to go get a glass of wine, and shortly came home and told my wife I'm opening a new restaurant in Stamford. And I opened Napping Company, which was just a tremendous place. And it got me back into food. And the deal with Napping Company for me and the owners, and really why I had taken the position and sort of changed my whole thought process on what I thought my future was going to look like in my life, was they really gave me a tremendous canvas to be the chef I wanted to be. Just don't worry about what just happened. Forget about that. It's in the past. We're going to build something really special here. And it was, just a complete open door approach to work with the farms you want, bring in the product you want. We had a full market. So it was like a real dream position. And I had done it for about, I had taken the job and built an apping company. Was there for probably just over 2 years. And really built sort of the energy back and the confidence. And shortly that's when I decided after that run at Napping Company to go do it again on my own. But this time differently. And so I opened a restaurant called La Farm, 36 seats, tiny little restaurant, got some money from a very good friend, father-in-law that, no working partners. And I just collected again, some of my favorite cooks I've had and some of my favorite front of the house people. And we created this really great restaurant in Westport, Connecticut, La Farm. And, it's what really kind of started, I would say, stamped me as a chef in the area. I'd been through some crazy stuff. I was a hot shot. I was cooking things people wouldn't even dare to do, but now I could do it sort of in my own room. And that's when I, sort of created my approach to food and to dining, which is high end, technically proven food cuisine concept, but in an extremely inclusive, welcoming environment. And my feeling was that, food should not have limitations to, who could eat it or, who's able to enjoy the experience. Of course, there's always going to be sort of dining issues or affordability issues, but we really wanted to create an environment that was welcome to anybody. Wear what you want, come in with who you want. We didn't care. Just eat our food, experience what we're doing. So that kind of pushed us through. After La Farm, I opened a few other restaurants, the Welk, and then the Welk was my oyster bar, and then Kawa Ni. And Kawa Ni was 11 years old. And Kawani really was an interesting start. People didn't know what it was. I always say I was a pretty big asshole in the middle of my sort of run up and as a chef. And the first Kawani menu was like printed in Japanese. You had to flip it over to the back. There was a glossary on it. It was, the whole thing was so douchey. But shortly after, I was like, okay, this is stupid. Get over yourself and let's have some fun here. And, I think it was like when we put truffle edamame on the menu a couple of years into it, where the whole thing just like the top blew off of Kawani. People were like, now I get it. Because everybody wanted to love it. They just couldn't figure out what the hell they were doing. And I was so caught up in myself and cooking and, making the food so precious that it was, it wasn't welcoming. It wasn't a place where people felt like they could come and relax. It was a whole experience, and that's great in some case, but I don't want that. I want people to come and relax and just enjoy the environment. So, through a couple of years, through the 11 years, I've had some other restaurants out here. And at one point, as of January this year, I had 5 different locations, with one being out west in Colorado. I had since separated from some partners to downsize and sort of streamline my approach. We had a really great 12-year run. But it was time for me to kind of refocus. And I just felt like being in Colorado, having 4 concepts back in Connecticut, all different food, one Mexican, one oyster bar, one Japanese, a coffee shop and a cafe. It just, my head was spinning every day while trying to open a restaurant across the country. So I decided to downsize and really focus on the Kawani concept. And that's kind of how we had come to it. How did we get to Denver was just sort of a group effort. At the time, my working partner had mentioned he had some family in Denver and he was interested in going out to Denver. I knew that if I was going to do more Kawanis, because again, I really struggled with the idea of duplicating any of my concepts because it meant like I didn't get to create something new. That's not fun to me. Well, that's not fun to me. Is like, I already did that. Why do we want to do it again? I was kind of famous for a while in this area that if we put a dish on the menu and it took over a menu or, outsold everything else, I'd just take it off the menu because I wanted you to try something else. That like, we just reprinted menus all the time. And it just was like, no, you don't, that's not what this is about. It's not about a broccoli salad. You have to try the new thing. So Kawani was my first location where I started to realize it's okay to have some hits, things that people come back for, it just kind of changed my approach. And then since, like I mentioned, I'll kind of tie it together, but since January, really, understanding that now separating and really being able to focus on a singular concept and having two of those concepts. And it's just been so fun to kind of figure out like how to make the concept better and better and better and not worry about just changing it, but just like fixing it. So, that's kind of how we got where we are at this point. I think the Denver run was mainly because the mountains. That was it. I wanted to be out west. I wanted to be where you guys are. Yeah.
These 300 days of sunshine are definitely appealing. That's for sure. But honestly, thanks for sharing all of that. It's a really cool story. It, brings to my mind the just chaos, as you put it, of the restaurant industry and how certain people can thrive in that environment. It can also humble you very, very quickly. There's not just, the fire in the kitchen. There's the bills, there's the partners, there's the location, there's the feel, there's the tweaks that you have to make to stay relevant. And every time I talk to restaurateurs, these life lessons come from being in the kitchen. It just makes you a better person, in my opinion. And, it's just really interesting to hear your story and kind of the humble beginnings to the quick uprising to more stability, later in life, which is just a really, really amazing story. And congrats. Why, I think, just a question that comes up, Asian food's certainly having its moment right now. It's really cool to kind of see the innovation and the more acceptedness of that food and culture, at a larger scale. You had oyster concepts, you had Mexican concepts. What was it for Kawa Ni that you said, this is going to be the one I want to tweak, fix? Is there anything further than what you shared of like, that's the concept I want to try and take to multiple markets?
It's a great question. It took, I think I was the last to accept the fact that Kawani had room for growth, and I, the Welk, my oyster bar was the same, during its prime. We would have some local developers. Everybody kind of wanted to take the Welk and put it in another location. But as I mentioned, that's not the way my brain was working. My brain was creating chaos. It wasn't creating continuity. It was looking to constantly challenge. I wanted us to be the best all the time. I didn't want to stop to focus on something I already created. There was an insanity. When I look back on, I think to myself, did I just like make everyone around me crazy for 15 years, or do we do something special? I could make the argument for both. But the Kawani, I think, as I mentioned, probably once we put, I use it as a joke, but once we put like truffle edamame on the menu, and people are like, I get this. I think immediately it just became a place for people where it's interesting. It's food you can't necessarily cook at home. It's flavorful. I always say, like, if 60% of the clientele doesn't think it's too salty, then we're not doing our jobs, right? Like, it's meant to just punch you in the face and be fun, but also sort of like allow you into this amazing sort of, through my lens, this culture, this experience, that is such a different way of dining. Like Japanese izakayas in Tokyo and Osaka are just some of the most fun eating environments you'll ever be in, right? And again, I keep using the word, but like they're just like all inclusive, right? Like you'll have the salarymen that come in that are so like perfect during the day and diligent about what they do, and they come and they start drinking and they're kind of falling all over the place. You get them, and it's the same. And then the same folks that are like sweeping the subway are at the izakaya, and I just love that there was no like, like the code was just be cool, come in, eat, and relax, and kind of just let everything kind of explode out of you, if you would, like really decompress. And I thought that was really interesting. And so for quite a while through Kawani, I just had my circle was always like, you got to do more of these, you got to do more of these, you got to do more of these. And then finally, I think COVID, allowed me to stop just like it did everybody else, but I got to stop. I got to reevaluate what's important. What are we doing? I'm huge on like short, medium, long-term goals. I'm insistent upon them in my group. And it's, I just started to do that myself. I was challenging everybody else for their goals and thinking like, well, what are mine? And I have two boys. They were kind of finishing up high school through this crazy time of life, or one entering, but the other exiting. And I just knew that in a few years I was going to have two boys off in college, um, two good people off in college as well. That were going to be good contributors to sort of to society, an amazing partner, and I was like, let's do something a little crazy here. Let's see. I never got to travel when I was in my 20s. All I did was work.
Yeah.
Right.
Everyone takes that time. My son is about to graduate CU, and he's telling me he wants to go out to Europe for a couple of years and teach English so he could travel the world. And I'm thinking like, or not even Europe, but the world. I never went anywhere. I mean, I think I went to Jones Beach, like an hour away at the beach. I raised two kids, through opening restaurants. So this is like at 45 years old was kind of like, all right, cool. Everybody's in a good spot. What does life look like for me? What does life look like for my wife? And what do we want to do? I don't think she was as into the original plan. I was talking to someone the other day. She's amazing. She's a godsend. And I think I signed a lease in Denver, and I'm like, hey, I'm opening a restaurant in Denver. And she's like, okay, what does that look like? And then I ended up like renting an apartment in Denver, taking our two dogs and moving there for like 10 months to open a restaurant. Like that's what it looked like. So I just think Kawa Ni like sticks with people, it's interesting and it's warm and welcoming. And I think that's what's important in restaurants is like how you feel when you walk in. And Kawani has just a knack of making people feel good when they walk in, I think.
Yeah.
Well, and it is a fun dining experience. I think there were about 12 sake bombs ordered by the time I went through. So we were hearing the bang.
Yeah.
What a cool, fun environment. Everybody was cheering, kudos to what you've created inside too. Like a lot of restaurants that are that fun and vibrant, sometimes the music can be hard to hear or the acoustics in general can be just too much and it doesn't equate to that fun environment. You guys have done an amazing job of tackling that. And, you bring in the plants and all the wood tones and it's just someplace you don't want to leave.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
I love it.
Congrats.
It's
awesome.
We were talking a bit before, and I was saying to Sean, I was like, I want my house to feel how Kawani feels. Like,
that's cool.
If my living room felt the way that Kawani does, I would probably be a much chiller person.
Yeah. I really appreciate that because that's the goal for us. It really is just customer first. What does it feel like? There's, I it's easy for me to say I study restaurants, right? Like that's a silly statement. But what I do is I go out and I really observe and absorb. And there's just no, and hot dose. I say this, and I know I'm jinxing myself, but because we're not perfect, and we're constantly working with our team to be better, and we're in a people business, right? So my words sometimes are different than the actions of others. So I will say that because just in case there's comments later, well, I was standing at your front door and no one said hi to me. But like we just really preach hospitality and we really preach like appreciation of our customers. There's just you go to a restaurant and there's just to me there's no more worse feeling than awkwardness. Like you go to a bar and you're kind of just standing there and you're like, who's supposed to look at me? Am I supposed to raise my hand? Or you're standing at a door and you're kind of looking around like, where do I go? Who do I talk to? People are walking by and not really recognizing you. That's like a terrible start to a meal. And
100%.
And my feeling is there's so many places that you can go. Yeah, Colony's pretty cool, and the broccoli salad's good, and the tofu pockets have a good story, and the wood's beautiful. But shit, if we're not good to you, like go somewhere else, and so we really have to remember that it's all of the pieces that make the complete experience. And sometimes what happens is the beauty of restaurants is if you really work hard on hitting all of those points, food, experience, hospitality, atmosphere, community, you're given a little more leeway if one of them might fall by the wayside one day
100%.
because you might have hit a couple of other points, so that's always been my approach is, really focus on the customer. What does the customer want? Listen, walk past the table. What did they say? Where are they going on vacation? Like I'm just obsessed about making sure your experience is really great. And I think, again, Kawani has a few just intangibles that allow us maybe to sort of slide into your favorite list, just keep building on those.
I love that. I'm curious, like as you've expanded this concept and, potentially expand this concept more. When you're thinking about the hospitality and replicating hospitality and doing that over and over again with the same sort of intensity, and how do you think about that? I know it's really hard being around restaurateurs and replicating the same sort of experience can be hard. So have you thought about how you tackle that?
And I would just piggyback off that real quick. Another concept or question that comes to mind that maybe you can answer is the human capital that you talked about. You're really intense with your team. Like, what challenges did you face being across the country from that team? And how did you let go? Because you kind of have to and put some trust into that team if you're, not down the street from them 24/7. But both those questions would be, lovely for our listeners to kind of get some insight on.
Yeah, I am intense. I'm learning to not be intense as much. I think respectfully, generationally, listen, again, I'm a 49, 50, going to be soon to be 50-year-old man. I have lots of experiences. I've been through this since I was 23 years old. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not making excuses, but there's a story here. My upbringing through the restaurant business has been a very stressful upbringing. When you are literally leading a team of cooks that are older than you, might have done like military service, when you're 23 years old, there's a lot of shit to deal with. There's a lot of stuff to unpack, and on top of not only trying to get people to do what you're telling them and build a team at younger with limited experience. By the way, I'm also trying to learn how to cook, so
Yeah.
like, because, you just don't like wake up and know how to cook. So, I'm just obsessive. So, and then my restaurant, the story I told you earlier with Relish and just all these things, I just constant like battles through it to stay focused and stay the path. And I think that happens in a lot of people's lives, most people's lives, right? There's adversity that kind of gets us to where we want to go. But, what I realized, and Denver was an eye-opening experience for me when I first started because, well, one, my team is coming in was younger, so now I have cooks and servers and so on and so forth that are closer to my older son's age than mine, so like generationally, how do we connect? Fine. Through food, through restaurants, through work, that's all cool. Through skiing, like you find ways, but I have to be careful. And also, let's keep in mind, I opened a restaurant in Denver. I didn't know a person in Denver, Colorado when I opened a restaurant. I didn't have there's no connection. There was no family, friends. I literally like opened across the country, took my dogs, took a couple like super loyal folks from the restaurant for the first couple weeks, and we figured it out and we did it and we built a team and we built a tremendous team when we first opened. I was intense. And the problem is, and I'm going to kind of spare you the weeds because this is some of my own ex-partner stuff, but it wasn't an easy opening in the beginning because I am intense. And I don't know if and this is not to discredit. I mean, has become one of my favorite places in the world. And I have so much respect for the chefs there and the restaurants, and I love the food. But like, I think I kind of brought a different intensity than maybe the city was used to, or at least some of the people that worked with us were used to. And,
East Coast vibes, baby.
Yeah, East Coast vibes, and right or wrong, but it's just who I am. And I am like, let's go. What are we doing? It's not okay. Like, stop telling me to chill. It's not chill. Like, shit's, chill is when the customers are home and they're fucking really happy. That's when I chill. I don't chill. I need other, So, and unfortunately, it just, I think I sort of had gotten muted a little bit early on in Denver because I was very nervous, and I it didn't feel as natural to build a team to me as it did back home. I really had to learn a new way to communicate and a new way to get people to trust me. And keep in mind too, all of the, we barely scratched the surface of sort of my Connecticut career and history and resume. You guys in Denver don't know and don't give a shit. If you're a server that's coming to work at Kawani, you did some research. You're like, this seems cool. This is great. But nobody knows who Bill was 10 years ago and all the things we've done or worked with me or was on my team and understands how loyal we are to each other and all those things. So it was all at, 47 years old. I started it all from the beginning with people I don't know, a generation that's very different, and really nothing to lean on. Nobody, no, I could be like, sure, I was nominated for the James Beard Foundation Best Chef Northeast 3 times. They're whatever. They were like in middle school when it happened, so uh, it was hard. And and I always say, like, I'm intense, but I'm thoughtful. I have a very high expectation level of you and of me and of everything we could accomplish if we're really good. That's just the way I live my life and I say it's an expectation level. I don't want to be a tyrant for the sake of being that, that's not fun to me. There's nothing fun.
Yeah.
But man, it's like when you're able, what it takes sometimes to get folks to understand that this is like a living, breathing thing that we have restaurants, and people are making decisions based on their experiences, their past experiences, experience of people they trust, friends, family, and then experiences of things like Yelp and Open Table and Chowhound and whatever else. So, I mean, you're just up against it, and there's not a lot of room to just be like, today was a bad day. Like, well, no,
Yeah.
that's not fair. There's customers, like, people work really hard and they spend their money and they decide to come spend it with us. Like, sorry, but it's not cool for us to have a bad day. It's like, that
Yeah.
just can't happen. Leave your personal shit at home. Like, this is work,
Yeah.
or let's pick up the pieces. Let's be a team. And it was really early on trying to find my new voice, if you would, to get people and to understand that, yeah, I talk faster than you. My brain it's just the way I'm wired. It's the Northeast thing. It's the only way we survive. I hate it. I'm not proud of it. It's not something that I'm telling other people they should have. Part of Denver was to slow down the meter, right? Like, to go out, and that was why I wanted to be out there, is change my approach. So just really building teams and understanding, like, how to build a team was a little bit of a challenge, but we did it, and we've been through um a few leadership changes in Denver as well. The one thing I could not take a chance with is that we weren't right, and we had brought on a GM early who was a great guy, loved him. I think he could have been great. And he kind of went back into the industry, and I think his wife wasn't happy that he sort of recommitted to the hours she asked him to get out of years prior.
Yeah.
And then we had brought on another woman, Allison, who I just thought was fantastic. I love Allison. Allison built a really great team with us. And after a year and a half or so, maybe I think a year, Allison was ready to go on and almost get out of the industry in the way that she was sort of, at this sort of like full GM role, but and
Yeah.
building this team, it just, they start to beat you down a little bit, the folks. And since then, we brought on a new general manager, Christina Hogue, who actually is probably landing at LaGuardia soon. She's coming
Yeah.
out here for the week to spend with us here. And
Awesome.
that's kind of a little bit to your question as well, as like integrating our team. So, it's about leadership for me, and like building our leadership and using my words, because it's the only thing I could do, is to like constantly preach this stuff, and then, allow our leaders, especially out in Denver, to like be them, and we have so many layers in the company as well, to protect and to allow sort of leadership to do their job and make sure that they understand what the priority is, which is like customer service, customer satisfaction, food, and experience.
Yeah.
So we kind of created what I like to think is this warm blanket to help everybody figure out how to do their jobs and how to do them better, and then just hope that continuously that the good people find us and they want to come be a part of our team. That's the most important thing, but it's the hardest part of what we do. And it's not because it's just finding great people, for our industry, seems to be getting harder and harder. And it's
Yeah.
not to say they're not there. And it's a hard life, and
It
you're
is.
different, right? Like, I don't know, you could go really kind of do a lot of other jobs,
Yeah.
a lot of other things, and kind of have a quote unquote normal life. You chose to be in a restaurant business where, like, you're now the opposite. You're the one that's giving people the great experiences. So understandably, it's becoming a challenge more and more to really get the buy-in, to get the team to understand, to bring in enough people to understand what the ultimate goal is. But we keep trying.
Well,
uh
you're doing a great job of it. Just the ethos of having that warm blanket feel for your customer and having that translate into your team, you can really tell. Like it is that
yeah, thanks.
uncomfortable environment. It's not like everybody's walking around there, afraid to give great hospitality or like, have you've empowered them to have that warm blanket for your customer and for each other. And it's commendable. You can see it in how your team operates and how you design your space and how you produce your food. It kind of, for me, that is kind of the encapsulation of what you're trying to do. You can really feel it, and very commendable because it's not an easy thing to do.
It is
No, it's
not.
not. No, I had a good experience. I'm sorry. I just, like life is a funny thing, and I just have it from a different perspective that I look at it now. I keep using this age thing, and but I've had a lot of experiences in my life, and I just realized, we have to work. Um, Most of us have to work,
Hmm.
and hopefully you do something you love. And the trick is to like try to do it. I've always said, I say the same thing to my kids, like, don't go take a job for the sake of taking a job. Try to get involved in something where like you really look forward to the day and going to your place of employment or
Yeah.
whatever task you're responsible for. Do it with people you enjoy. And I think it's, just really trying to create that environment is what builds really great teams. And we offer, I feel, and I'm always checking in to find out, but I feel like we just offer all the resources necessary to be successful, because it's so important. I understand. I've been through this my whole life. I know what it's like, the sacrifices made for people to work in the restaurant business. I get it. I am as sensitive as anybody to it, and I will run through walls and fight fires for anybody in it. But let's get in it. Like, let's really do it. And
Yeah.
that's the challenge sometimes, is that in and out. But it's all about leadership. If you find great people, you could open up restaurants all over the world, because you find a great leader that has a really strong backbone and a will to succeed. That's that's all we need. Everything else kind of falls into place.
Yeah. I can say from quite a bit of experience that, like you said, the leadership is a big piece of that. I mean, prior to real estate now, for the last probably 15 years of my life, I was in the restaurant industry, and I felt really a lot of me leaving that was, it was really hard to find great leaders to work for. And I think that one of the best things that you can do, um, in the restaurant industry as an employee is try to go seek out those people, that are going to build great teams and build really great environments. They're hard to come by, but when you find them, stick around because they're not always like that, and especially the restaurant industry. And uh, it can be a toxic place, unfortunately.
Yep.
Um, and I think that you've done a great job um, of curbing that a little bit. So kudos to you.
Yeah. It's definitely it's what we focus on all the time. Recently, well, shouldn't say recently, 6 months ago, I removed post shift drinks,
Yeah.
um, you know, uh, from the group. And
Hmm.
it had nothing, it wasn't a monetary decision. It was, I just it felt like, and I am not going to judge anybody's outside life. I'm here to help if necessary. But I just felt like at a certain time, there was through our tenure at Kawani, there was in Denver, there was a group that had become very reliant on going out after and just sort of
Yep.
and it was
Yeah.
just bleeding into the next day. And some of the word I was getting, it was becoming unhealthy and all these things. And I was like, you know what?
Hmm.
Like, I don't want to sort of start that.
Yeah.
I don't need to give you a drink at like, you're all revved up. You just worked a full shift.
Yeah.
I'm putting the gasoline in your hand. Go have your drink. That's fine, but not here. Like, I don't want to be
Hmm.
responsible to start that. I took it away and we replaced it with taking that same money we would spend on those shift drinks, right? and we allocated it towards like a grander family meal on the weekend. So the managers and the chefs
That's
were,
awesome.
given about 250 bucks a week, whatever it was. And they could go order from wherever they want, Blue Pan Pizza, or get some subs from Lou's Specialty. The kitchen didn't have to cook, and, let's just, and use it as a bonding time, as opposed to like at the end of the shift, everyone kind of chugging down their shot of tequila or whatever they're doing to then go out. And I caught some shit for that. That was a big one. The team was not happy. They didn't see the reason. It was, you're taking more
100%.
stuff from us, and it's like, and the hardest part is when you own a business, you're constantly, it is a business. And I've never looked at my businesses as businesses. I've always looked at them as creative centers. But sometimes, like, shit, again, Kawani West, Denver was a very expensive restaurant to build. I have investors. I have people that I'm responsible to. And, I have to make decisions to make sure that this thing has some longevity, and like everybody, that is involved here is taken care of. So, uh, that was a really surprising situation to me, where you start to realize, like, this is different, because I used to be able to, say whatever I wanted, and people were like, yes, chef, here we go. It's a little different. So, uh, but again, like, I appreciate the challenge and sort of a new way to figure things out. It's been
It's
kind of
great.
fun.
I think it's just, again, you're probably a little more callous than you were when you were 27, but you've got a full TED talk on life, on restaurants, on people. And, it's fun to see you continuing to adapt. I think the secret sauce for restaurateurs is adapting. Consumers change, pricing change, inflation changes, rental rate changes. You can't get stuck in your ways too much, or you'll just get rolled over. And I think the best restaurants that we interact with or friends with, do work for, are those ones that can adapt, can be that leadership, can rely on their experience, even if it's ghosts of Christmas past, to say, I wish somebody would have given me this advice. I wish somebody would have pushed me in this way. And it's hard to conceptualize when you're in your 20s. As you get older, those life lessons, when you look back, like, I wouldn't give it up for anything. So kudos to what you're doing. It's really great. And we're so humbled to have you as our first guest. This has been, I didn't know how this was going to go, to be quite candid. I think the conversation's been great. And Bill, your story for what we're trying to create, of, it's not just the food, it's not just the chef, it's this team, it's this ecosystem. It's the design elements, it's how you hug those customers in. That's really what Space Makers is about. Like, we want to hear these stories of how these restaurateurs have created something they're so passionate about, and how they maintain those things and everything that goes into it. So again, really humbled. I love your experience. I love this story. Really, really great dialogue and conversation. And we know you're busy. We kind of wanted to try and keep this to an hour, but maybe a couple kind of final thoughts. And Devon's got some things to kind of wrap up. But I think, like I said, thank you very much.
Well, cool. Thank you for you guys and what you're doing, and really sort of bringing bringing us to the forefront, and letting people hear the stories of entrepreneurs. It takes a lot to do, but I think it's just sort of an intangible that we have in our belly, and it's there, it's a flame, it's a fire. And if you have it, go do it. But, we could talk about all the hardships of owning businesses and restaurants, and how, but at the end of the day, the reward is just tremendous, and the team building and the customer satisfaction and all of those things. Just having these conversations, I'm going to, hang up with you guys in a little bit, and like, just going through the stories, kind of reliving, reminding myself of stuff. I'm all fired up, I'm ready to go.
So I think if you saw like Bobby Sucky's speech at the James Beard, I mean, that fire, that's tenacity is needed. And what I love about this pod is there's not a lot of people telling those stories. And I think like, Bobby's like a great example of that and what he personifies, but there's no unified force within the restaurant industry. And so like, it's really hard to hear these stories, and there's so many different ones, but I think at the end of it, that passion is always there. And, that's what's needed to maintain in this industry for sure.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. We're a crazy bunch for sure.
I got a parting question. I'm curious if there is a story or kind of a memorable moment of like a guest experience that you've had, that you feel kind of proud of?
Proud of? Well, can I go the other way?
Sure, yeah.
Not proud of?
Not proud of. Yeah,
Well,
that'd be great too. That's a better story, probably.
So, I just think it's relevant. At this time, I'm a diehard New York Yankee fan. So if it might miss the Denver clientele, unfortunately. But
we don't know much about baseball.
Yeah. But I'm a diehard Yankee fan, and Brian Cashman is the general manager of the Yankees. It's a problem. He's been the general manager of the Yankees for over 30 years. It's essentially a oligarchy, if you would, or authoritarianship. So back in my napping company days, Brian Cashman lives, I think, in New Canaan, Connecticut, or sort of in Fairfield County, Greenwich, one of the towns. I'm not quite sure where he lives now. This is 15 years ago, 12 years ago, but. I think it was the 09 series or the 04 series, 09 series. No, the 04 series where the Red Sox, the Yankees were up on the Red Sox 2-0, and the Red Sox came back and won the series, and then ultimately went on to win the World Series. I'm at Knapp and Company. I had watched, I believe the Yankees lost. I could be wrong. I apologize. But so I'm kind of gisting the story here, but I believe the Yankees lost on like a Wednesday or Thursday night. Fast forward to Friday night, and one of the cooks, and I am pissed, an avid Yankee fan. Red Sox go on, now the Red Sox are in the World Series and so on and so forth. This is just terrible.
Swept the Rockies that year.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So there you go. And I'm in the kitchen and, not thinking twice about it. And one of the servers comes and be like, "Oh, Brian Cashman's here sitting at table, whatever." And I was so fucking livid because I was so mad that they had lost this series. And I'm thinking to myself, how does this asshole have how could he possibly be out in public, eating dinner? He should be sitting in his room, figuring out what's going on right now. I refused to serve the guy. I pulled the ticket off the counter. They kept coming in. Oh yeah. Yeah, it was a pretty serious thing. Ultimately, ended up getting him food, but we made sure it was not one of those warm hug, hospitable experiences. Again, I was kind of a jerk. I'm definitely learning how not to be a jerk. But yeah, it was one of those moments I'm like, I refuse to serve him. And everyone's looking at me and I go, I'm not doing it. He should not be here right now. He should be home. I'm miserable. I'm sitting here. Why am I so upset? He's not upset and he's out here eating my food. So yeah, that was the Brian Cashman. Then we're in Fairfield County here. We always have some fun surprises with celebrities that pop in and out, come out of the city. I've had the pleasure of creating a really nice relationship with Martha Stewart over the years, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, a few other folks that come in and out. So I don't spend a lot of time in the dining room. So I keep hearing what I keep, I have a little bird that sort of has some good connections with the Broncos. And I keep hearing that, the Broncos love Kawa Ni and keep coming in and spending some time there. So that's great. Again, I would never know because I don't spend a lot of time in the dining room, but I'm a Cowboy fan, but I am slowly becoming a Bronco fan as well. It's hard not to when you're in that city. You guys are rabid.
100%.
So.
There's a lot of passion.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's contagious.
Well, one of our third partner does, his dad does the play-by-play for the Cowboys on the radio. So we're well connected there. Happy to help you out. Babe Laufenberg, he's a quarterback for them. Yeah,
of course I know Babe. Yeah, well, I don't know him, but yeah.
Joe Willie works with us, and we'll have to have him on the pod at some point too, and maybe we'll bring you back because this is what he does for a living. We can learn some things.
I was actually just looking this morning because I'll go to the game on the 26th. The Cowboys are in Denver, so I was just looking on TickPick and everything, and I'm like, how these damn tickets are so damn expensive. But I'll probably just wait. I know my son and I will go. I'll just probably just wait until we're at the gate to buy tickets and hope that something drops.
Hopefully.
But there'll be plenty there. Yeah. If not, we're going regardless. We go down to Dallas every year, and
fun.
It's a whole nother part of my life. Yeah. Believe me, it's not fun. It's a Cowboy fan. It's not fun.
Yeah. I'm a Bears fan, so I know the pain.
Yeah. All of us.
Last time I went to the Broncos game last year, actually, it was, I think, October 29th, and it was dumping snow. So
that's cool.
Around the corner.
You got that. And I got tickets for $10-15 because I waited until the last minute and it was snowing. So maybe you'll get lucky.
Well, the problem is with the Cowboys, right? And as much as either you love them or you hate them, the ticket prices are always thrown out, up, just exorbitant for no reason. But it's the star in the helmet, man. It's the same reason I got tricked years and years ago as a young kid as a stupid star, but it keeps
At least you
ticket
didn't
prices
end up as
high.
a Jets fan. You probably would have been probably a little more hurt, but at least you had some of those Super Bowls with Troy and Emmett. But
exactly, through my high school years too. So those are formative years for sure.
For sure. Yeah. Well, Bill,
So
we
funny.
can't appreciate the time that you took for this, and we're new on the scene, and so just putting some trust in us means a lot. And look forward to keeping these conversations open. And next time you're in town, I'd love to meet you in person. And
great.
Again, thank you so much for your time. We know you're a busy guy, and next time you're in Denver, dinner's on us, and look forward to connecting.
Sweet. I'm going to take you up on it. See you guys in a couple of weeks. Yeah, pleasure, guys. Best of luck. What you're doing is great. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Bill.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.